AM 930 WPAT.
Hey everybody, it's Wednesday again with Talk Nation. Amy from Texas, and I feel so much better. If you tuned in last week, I had the flu and I sounded like I was a nasally frog, I guess, but I feel a lot better today. And oh my goodness, I've been telling you guys about my next guest. I'm so excited, and you know that I am also an artist, and I've been following this one artist for several years now, and I'm starting to feel like a stalker, because I tell you what, I'm like, I know where, it's like I know where she is and what she's doing all the time with her art, but I'm just such a big fan. And so I'm so honored to have her today. And also, I wanted to mention, I thought there was, I'll get with that later. I don't quite remember that. But anyway, well, without further ado, I would like to introduce you guys to an artist that has, she's a professional artist. She's from California, and she is going to share a lot of great things. And I'm super excited to have her on. Betty, are you there?
I sure am. Hello. And I am super excited to be here, Amy. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, this is wonderful. Okay, well, now that we have you, we're going to learn all kinds of good stuff. So, we're going to be just all casual and just get through this. So, can you tell us, I guess, first of all, just your name and where we can find you on all the social media outlets, and as well as where is your studio located?
Sure. Yeah. But first, you're cracking me up in the introduction. So art stalkers are more than welcome. I welcome them all. You're not the first one to mention that. I've had other people say, "Oh my God, I feel like a stalker because I know where what you're doing and where you're at and where you are in the world today." And art stalkers are welcome.
Yay! That's so awesome.
All right. So I am in California, sunny California, in San Jose, which is just south of San Francisco. And my studio is in downtown San Jose. I'm in an old medical building, and I've got my own space here, and I love it. Very comfortable and warm, as opposed to my last place that was an old cannery building that was very cold and drafty. And here I also can have Wi-Fi, so I get to chat with you from my studio. Where you can find me all over social media. So on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest is not social media, but you'll find me on Pinterest and on YouTube. Just look up Betty Franks Art. And then I've also got a website, same name, bettyfranksart.com.
Wonderful. Yes. And, I follow everything, Facebook, the Instagram, everything. So, and I remember, I've seen your videos over and over and over again, because I'm not trying to copy. I'm trying to learn how you do certain techniques and stuff. And of course, that's, what a lot of artists do. And I know that every time I'm thinking, okay, if you're in that shed thing or whatever, and you're freezing and you're still out there painting, I'm like, what is my excuse? My home studio is in in another bedroom. So what's my problem? I'd be so lazy. But so you're inspiring in that way of that you keep, working and you're always working on things. So, and that's the part of the difference, I guess, about that a lot of artists don't want to do, is that the business part of it. It's like, man, you've got to do these things, you've got to market and all of that to stay afloat, to keep the business running. So I made a list of questions, and I'm so ready to hear these answers. So when or how did you decide you wanted to be an artist?
Oh, very good question. So I don't think I really decided I wanted to be an artist. I was, prior to becoming an artist, I worked in corporate America for 30 years, 25 plus in customer service management. And so, my background is very much very corporate, spreadsheets and Word docs and email and PowerPoint presentations and running meetings and managing people. So I've got a lot of experience in that area, which I learned as I became an artist that was extremely beneficial to me in order to run a successful business. So kind of those last couple of years before I left corporate America, I started creating cards on the weekends. It was kind of my stress relief. I was stamping and I was trying to get things lined up just perfect, making these birthday cards that took hours to make. It's one of those things I can run to the store and spend a couple of dollars, or I can spend hours and hours and probably hundreds of dollars in supplies. But it was very therapeutic for me. I absolutely loved that time. So I spent several years doing that. And then I stumbled upon mixed media somewhere on the internet, and I don't recall where, but I still recall that mad falling in love feeling where I was just floored. I was like, this is what I want to do. With mixed media, everything that was imperfect was perfect. And I really believe in that. I really believe that things can be perfectly imperfect. And yes, that was one of those things, doing mixed media art in that way. And you're talking about YouTube. If you scroll down to the very beginning of my YouTube videos, you will see some of my mixed media videos in there. I didn't take them down. They're still out there. And I loved doing that. Yes, thank you. So I did that for several years. And then I started noticing abstract art. Now, prior to that, I did not like abstract art. And I realized that I didn't like any of the abstract art that I was seeing out there. I just didn't find abstract art that really spoke to me. And when I started seeing that and noticing it, I remember this one store I walked into. It was a home store, and they had original artwork. And I thought to myself, wow, this is what I want to be creating. I want to create abstract art because it's just speaking to my heart, and it was just drawing me in, and I was just falling in love with it. And so in 2016, was it 2016 or 2015? Now I'm starting to get my years mixed up, but right in there, I think 2015 actually, is when I decided to become an abstract artist. I ended up going to a workshop. The workshop had nothing to do with learning how to be an abstract artist, but it was where I put a line in the sand and said, okay, from this day forward, I'm an abstract artist. I packed up all of my mixed media art supplies, and I sold or gave away or saved a few little things that I really loved that I didn't want to get rid of. But I felt like I needed to remove all of that in order to focus on being an abstract artist. And I truly believe that I couldn't be where I am today if I was still bouncing back and forth between mixed media work and focusing on being an abstract artist.
Sure. And it's interesting that you say that because, I talk a lot on my show about simplifying your life and in your mind and self-care and all of these things. And that is part of kind of simplifying and being more focused on, yes, okay, I'm just going to do this. So you're not worried about thinking, well, maybe I'll do a little of this. It's like, no, just go ahead and get rid of it except for your favorite things and then focus on that. So that really hits home with me for sure. It makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Yes. How long have you been an artist? Because I know that you started, 6, 7, 8 years ago or something?
Somewhere in there. Actually, it was just before my 50th birthday that I started doing the mixed media pieces. And they were just small pieces, like on 4x6 pieces of paper, construction paper, and then 5x7s. So, and 3x5s. I mean, I was really working small. And that's why I think I still have a love for working on paper and working small, because that's where my journey really started. So I started doing that. I didn't start actually selling my art until several years after that. And then I would say in 2016, 2017 is really when I focused on becoming a selling artist. So I'm about to celebrate later this year, I'm celebrating my 60th birthday. So I'm going on 10 years. Thanks. So yeah, I'm going on 10 years of being creative in one way or another, and very excited about the journey I've been on, and excited about, what the next 10 years is going to bring as well.
Wow. And that's something about being able to be a full-time artist. That's really so tough for us, because it's hard to keep that, art is a want, not necessarily a need, but it's like you need stuff for your walls, and art is so beautiful, and it speaks to different people for, different ways and reasons. And we're all trying to figure out, how are you doing it? Let's see, what is your style and process for creating art?
So my style and process, good question. Certainly, if you've seen my YouTube videos, you know my process from start to finish, right? Pretty much. So for folks who haven't watched...
You made me go and buy all these pencils and stuff.
I hope you're using them.
Yes.
Good. So my process is, I like to start with connecting to my canvas, or I should say my substrate. So whether that's canvas, paper, or wood, which are my three primary substrates that I like to use. So connecting to it in some way and loosening up. And the way I like to do that is to just start with some mark making that isn't going to be seen in the final piece. It doesn't matter how you put it down. There is no wrong way to do it. It's all right. And it's a way to start loosening up, especially when I'm working large. Large is, you're using your full body. So yes. It's my way of starting to get into the motion of moving my hands and getting some marks down. And then I like to go into using a lot of black. And people are always surprised when they look at my artwork and they say, I can't believe you start with that much black. Because in the end, they tend to be very bright colors and very little black is showing. And the reason I like to do that is because I like the black to give depth to that painting. And if I put it on at the very end, it's going to kind of be floating on top. So I don't want it floating on top. I want it to people to see it way in the background. So that's why I like to start with a lot of black. And then from there, I am known for working with either warm colors or cool colors at a time. And the reason I do that is so that I'm not creating mud. Now, nothing wrong with mud. Sometimes we need those neutral colors, and especially when you're using a lot of brights like I do, if you add some neutrals to it, your brights are going to pop even more. So I don't want to make that mud too early on, so I split up my colors. I work with warm colors only first, so like your reds, oranges, pinks, yellows. And then when that layer is dry, then I come in with my cool colors. So your blues and purples and greens, and then yellow again, because yellow will work for either warm colors or cool colors. Okay. And from there, I'm building it up. I love layers. I think I have that love for layers from my mixed media days, because that was one of the things that I just loved about mixed media was, the stamping on top of the paint, on top of some pencil marks, on top of the stenciling. It's just adding that so much interest that way.
I know that whenever I try, it seems like whenever I don't know about any other artists or that's listening, any of the listeners that's actually listening, but for me, because I do more of an intuitive art, and then it's kind of intuitive at the beginning, and then you start to define more of the, kind of the shapes and where you're wanting the colors more and your little, marks and stuff. So, but I think that, like you said, the black being on the bottom and stuff, it gives it that depth and because you want to be able to almost kind of like you're seeing that field of flowers like you talk about. And, so yeah, that's definitely a great color. And you would think because your art is so cheery and so bright and beautiful that people are like, oh, but you put black first. It's like, yeah, that gives it depth. That gives it,
Yep.
it gives it that special layer. Well, you've already said the surfaces that you paint on, wood, canvas. Have you ever done any murals?
I have not done murals. I'm not even sure that I'm all that interested in doing murals. It would definitely take me out of my comfort zone. I'm not going to say I'll never do one. If I'm asked, I would have to consider it, but it's not one of those things that I am naturally drawn to wanting to do.
Mm-hmm. I know the price point for murals are, we would charge more as an artist than you would for maybe a canvas or what have you. But it is definitely, it takes a lot more physical stuff, I have a couple art friends here in the Houston area that they do a lot of murals for schools and buildings and bars and what have you. And they are always wore out after even one day of, even trying to stencil the painting with a projector, put it on the wall or whatever. And it's a lot of work. So I'm kind of with you. It's like, I want to maybe participate with someone, let someone kind of lead me just to try it, just to see. And I'm like, hey, it's not for me, but yeah, that's definitely a tough one. And of course, we've already talked about how long you've been an artist, and I think it's almost. Growing up, I was, and I think I've told you this before too in a post, and I know you're not going to remember, but of course I would remember, because I'm just one person. I mean, you're just one person for me, and but I said my grandmother's name was Betty, and she was my heart, and that every summer she would teach me a new art or craft, crocheting or this or that or whatever. And then when I got older, I started working on furniture and redoing furniture. And then I thought, wow, what about a canvas? I've never tried that before. And then I started and I did pretty well, for about a year or so. And then I found you. And then now I'm like, okay, I'm trying to take it a whole nother way, but I just thought how, your name is Betty, and I'm like, I found you on YouTube, and I did just always watch your videos. So I do remember that comment. I remember your post. Yes.
Okay, cool. I remember that. And also I remember thinking, if I wasn't painting on canvas, I would probably be doing something with furniture, because I love that restoration of furniture and painting it and giving it a fresh new look. Yes.
Yeah. Because it's like, it goes from that. And then it just looks so beautiful.
Yep.
The drastic change.
Yes.
What type of medium do you use, as in, different acrylics and oils?
Yes. I am all about acrylics. And the main reason for that is I have so little patience when it comes to creating art and waiting for each layer to dry. So like I talked about, I like to do my warm colors, then my cool colors. And I like, I've got a hair dryer sitting over here by my wall, because I can't even wait for some of that to dry. I need to move along. So oils would not work for me at all. I just can't imagine waiting days to have something dry so that you can move to the next layer. For me, we talked about intuitive painting, and my art is very intuitive. However, like you mentioned, as I work through it, I start to create a composition, and I am inspired by my love for fields of flowers. And so it's that feeling of flowers. It's the, parts of flowers. It's also old fences that are falling down. It's, the line, trees that are lined up. All of those things show up in my artwork, my love for those. Sometimes you'll see like one color going into another, and I'll come in with my final mark making, which I was just doing some, and I will use a pencil to stitch those two together. And that comes from, I used to do some sewing, not a lot. My mom did a lot of sewing, and I just love that idea of taking fabric and creating something. And I love the way stitches look. And so you'll see some of those marks in my artwork as well. So yes, acrylics. Yep. So for me, it's all about acrylics, and then mark making tools. They are all water soluble. And, I used to use oil pastels. I bought this big, beautiful package of oil pastels, 25 colors. And I remember, putting them on my canvas, and I'm just loving these colors. They're bright. They're beautiful. And the next morning, I come back into my studio. This is when I had my studio in my garage, and I go and look at my painting. I think, oh, it's just beautiful. And I rub my hand across it, and it wasn't dry. And I'm looking at my hand, and I've got oil pastel all over it, and I smeared the whole thing. And I just thought, okay, this is not going to work. This should have been dried overnight. So I stopped using oil pastels. I ended up selling that brand new package that I had purchased. And I haven't gone back to oil pastels for that reason. I need it to dry, and I need to move forward.
I'm the same way. I have zero patience for wait for it to dry. And I'm trying to start portraits with oil, just a little bit, just do some, maybe a picture to that. I'm trying to learn that process. And you have to slow down where this, you're going, you're not giving yourself time to think about where you're putting your marks and your colors. It's just a feeling. And that it's just, but something I've noticed in your newer stuff that I want you to talk about a little bit, it seems like I'm seeing more boulders and more, like you were talking about the sticks and different things. So it's like, okay, because it looks, I really like the new stuff too that you're doing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this last trip to Croatia, for folks who don't know, my parents are from Croatia. We grew up in California here. My brother, my sister, and I were born in Toronto, but when I was 7, I'm the oldest. So when I was 7, we moved to California. We've been here since. And during this last trip, when I went back to Croatia to visit my parents, which was the month of March, I just got back last Wednesday, as a matter of fact, I was creating, and I was noticing a little bit of a shift in my artwork. And going back to 2018, that is when I discovered the style of painting that I have. And that was with my mom going for walks through the village or through the, on the other side of the, I don't know how to call it. There's a word for it in Croatian, but I don't know what the word would be for it in English, but it's basically on the other side of the mountain. And it's where people have, little plots of land. They've got olive trees. They might be planting potatoes way back centuries, or not even centuries. My grandparents would go up there and plant vegetables. And so my mom and I would go for walks daily. And a lot of times we'd go back there. And this was in May of 2018 that I was there. Flowers were in bloom. Wildflowers were everywhere. And that's when I discovered that I started painting what I was seeing and feeling, because I absolutely loved the flowers. My mom would pick them. We would create these little bouquets of flowers. Come home, we had little bouquets of flowers all over the house. And so I wasn't surprised that on this trip, during more of the winter months, because March, we don't have very many flowers yet in Croatia. The winter is still there. Weather is still a bit harsh. And so what I discovered was I was really noticing the rocks, the boulders, the bare trees, the piles of old branches that are all kind of intertwined, and the messiness of that. There's a part of me that loves messiness, but it's kind of like a controlled chaos. Mm-hmm. So what I found was I was kind of creating those. So I worked on smaller pieces during my trip, and I usually just work on paper when I'm there because it's easy for me to transport back. And so I was creating these pieces, and I loved the way they were looking. Now, I came back last Wednesday. I've got a few weeks to prepare for my first solo show, which I'm super excited about. It's going to be at COLIBRI Gallery in Morgan Hill, California, which is just south of San Jose. and it's opening the first weekend in May. And so I only have a couple of weeks to get some more work done. And so I've been kind of frantic these past, since I touched down back into California last week. I've been working hard at some larger pieces. Now, Amy, you and I are on Zoom right now, so Amy can see the artwork behind me that I've been working on. And there has been a little bit of a shift. So if you follow me on social media, I did post some yesterday or Monday. I posted something today as well. There's a little bit of a shift in my artwork, and part of it came about because there was this 48 by 60 inches long piece of canvas that I have been struggling with. And I posted about that a couple of weeks ago, I think before I left for my trip. I just could not get a composition going. I couldn't get my marks to look anywhere decent. And so when I came back from that trip, I said, okay, I'm going to do something different, because I tackled it again. And again, I was not happy with it. So we're talking about painting upon painting under this particular canvas, but now I'm super happy with it. It's the piece that's behind me that Amy saw earlier. And it is one where I took one of my concertina journals. Now, concertina journal is like a folded accordion journal. And I've got a YouTube video on how I create those. And I took one of them and I was flipping through for some ideas, and I found this little composition that I really liked. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to supersize just that little part. And that's what I ended up doing. So I did it with that large 48 by 60 that I was struggling with so much. And let me tell you, when you've got all those layers underneath, it's delicious to see that final layer put on, because you can see some, I don't cover the whole thing. I allow some of that to show through. Mm-hmm. And so that one is looking good now. And then I said, okay, I can do this. So I got a 40 by 60 out, again in the landscape mode. I'm used to doing portrait. So portrait, no issues, but it's when it's long, it's a long painting that I really struggle with. And I tend to do a lot of square paintings. I love the square size. So I decided I'm going to take out the 40 by 60. I did that a couple of days ago, got down a couple of layers. Now, my first few layers, I wanted to treat it like that one that was failing so much and had already so many layers on it. So I just came in and just started throwing on paint every which way. There was no wrong way to do it, because I just wanted to build up some texture and some interest and some colors. And then I came in yesterday and I tackled that one. And again, I took my concertina. I've got several of those little mini accordion journals that I created art in. And I found, again, a little composition that I liked, and I supersized it onto the canvas. And so I think that's the one that I posted this morning. And I'm really loving it. It's the elements are much larger. Usually I tend to do a lot of smaller marks. So these are large marks. They're bold. They're exciting. There's lots of more quiet resting space where your eye can kind of really relax a bit before it sees some more crazy, interesting stuff going on. So yeah, I am super excited about this.
Yes. Well, I was going to say that I know that in your, when you do your square pieces, it really makes it easy for that plus, you know what I'm saying? When you first put on the painting and you make kind of a plus sign, and more of designing the basic of, okay, here's kind of where it is. And our quiet spaces are going to be a little bit on the corners, a little bit. And that's kind of what I do anyway as well. And, so that helps. And you've had such a huge body of work that you could take even pieces of some of your favorite ones, like you said, and blow up those areas and make that a painting. And It's like, yeah. And so I think that's what I feel that's what would be a great thing that you're doing.
It's exactly what I'm doing. And it's something that I've thought about over the years to do. And I never really got around to doing it, to really trying it. And so I guess, I really believe that things happen when they need to happen in due time. And I think this was just the right time for me to explore a bit more and to push myself outside of my comfort zone a little bit, but not entirely, because really those marks are still me and they're still the kind of marks I like to make. They're just larger and they're more bold and they make quite the statement.
Yes. I was going to, the old saying about the starving artist. Do you think it's true?
No, I don't like to use the term starving artist. I don't like folks who use the term starving artist. I have an interesting story, just a very short story. There was an email that came through and their email address was starving artist. And I just thought,
they're already starting off negative, aren't they?
Yeah. So it was, I felt sad for them because they're reading that every day and that is sinking into their subconscious. Every day they're telling themselves that they're a starving artist. And I just don't believe that that is true. And I do believe that when we repeat certain words, whether we're telling ourselves that or we see that written on a daily basis, we start to act and believe that we are that. And so I truly believe in positive messaging and you'll find things, posted in my spaces that are little reminders of very positive reinforcing words that help keep me positive. Now, I'm not saying I'm always positive. We have that little devil on our shoulder that's always like saying things that shouldn't be said. And we can't fully control that. So I guess I kind of try to counterbalance that with posting messages to remind me that life is good and that things that I should be focused on. So going back to, if you want to make a career as an artist, you can do it. There is absolutely room for everybody to show their art to the world, to sell their art to the world. There is a lot of work behind it. So there's no easy way to do it. It's really putting in a lot of time. And for me personally, I spend more time running my business than I do creating art. Except for this past week and the next week or two, because I have to be focused on creating some more pieces. But the majority of my time is spent on getting my artwork out there, sharing my artwork, sharing my message, sharing my love for creating, sharing my workshops, my online courses. I love putting it out there. And I think what I get most out of that is when I get messages from people that tell me how much it's changed their ability to create art and their inspiration to want to create art and to move forward, especially after folks who get stuck and then they'll watch some of my YouTube videos. I mean, I've had one lady tell me she started watching late at night and didn't go to bed till 4 a.m. because she kept watching all my videos, one after another. So
I've done that, Betty.
Was that from you?
I feel like it's a sickness. What is wrong with me?
It's easy to it's easy to start watching a video and go one to the next. But anyway, I truly believe that if that's something that you want to do, there are ways to do it, but it's hard work. There isn't a day that doesn't go by that I am not trying to learn something that I can apply towards my business. So I am listening to podcasts. I am watching YouTube videos. I am reading an article. There's so much to learn. And what's absolutely wonderful is that it's all out there and the majority of it is free. You just have to go and look for it, and you have to take the time to want to explore and to learn and to be open to suggestions and ideas. Not everything that you read is going to work for your own business, But you've got to try. I have tried so many things and a lot of them failed, but there are certain things that have worked for me over the years that I continue to do. So it's putting in that time. And I know for a lot of folks, so it's not easy to go from, your right brain of being creative and wanting to be creative to left brain thinking of, how do I market myself? How do I put my artwork out there? How do I share it? And how do I learn more about how to do those things?
And that is true, because remember, it's what I was saying, and I always tell a lot of my artist friends and people that have asked me, because, I did, for a year, I did own an art gallery here in Houston. And I thought, well, this would be really great, but and it was a brick and mortar. So it was expensive. It wore me out. I'm trying to fight cancer and run that. And it's just, it was crazy. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus on me now. But it's tough. You can create a little bit. I mean, you've got to create and have that, the work there, to take to shows and galleries and this and that and whatever and what have you. But you've got to put in the work of, like I said, marketing. And, you were saying the different, like I said, you're all over social media and, learning algorithms. I don't even know how to do all that stuff. And how do you get your followers? And how do you video yourself, you take yourself and then you edit it and all of that. So that takes a learning process. But once you learn those things, then you can start doing them and start slowly building. Rome wasn't built in a day. So,
exactly.
And I always try and focus and tell people to focus on that. And I'm also a psychology major. So, I follow a lot of the cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the positive thinking. And I think, therefore I am. Mm-hmm. So it's a work in progress. It's not like a give me, like you go to work at 8 to 5, you're working for somebody else.
Right.
It's just like any other business. You've got to work it.
Yes.
And, but it's doable. So
it is. And I'll tell you what, I get excited every morning when I wake up. I am excited to get out of bed and to get started. Today I was excited because I knew I was doing this interview, and then my brain was like, wait a minute, I didn't email my list and I need to post about it. So I immediately got up and I started putting everything together and got it out there. So I'm hoping lots of folks are able to join in today.
Yeah, I definitely, because every little bit helps, and it's okay. Today you're on the radio. Tomorrow you're going to share this, or tomorrow, the next day and the next day. It's just all builds on each other. And so, speaking of where your art, how your studio is located in San Jose,
correct?
Right? Do you live close to your studio, so you just get up and kind of run over there?
Sure. Yeah. What my typical day looks like is I get up and I get on my computer. I immedately, I do a few things around the house, and then I get on my computer, and that's when I do what I call my desk work. So, website stuff, social media, inventory tracking. I mean, you name it, that's all falls under desk work for me. And so I spend the first few hours in the morning, usually till about noon, doing desk work. I grab some lunch or I pack lunch, and then I'll head to the studio. Usually by 1 o'clock, I'm at the studio, and I'm here usually until about 5 or 6. That's like a typical day. Sometimes it varies. If I've got errands to run, it'll change up a little bit, but that's usually how my day plays out. And it works well for me because I like, getting on to the computer right away and getting that work done. And I think that comes from working in corporate America for so many years. My job was always to be on the computer and to do work on the computer. So that comes very naturally for me.
I guess it's good to be a little bit tech savvy, on stuff. So So that probably helps a little bit.
It definitely helps, but you know what? I still ended up having to learn a lot of things. And YouTube is great for that because I'm visual. And like a lot of people probably listening, you're very visual. So go to YouTube, and I'm telling you, YouTube has a video on just about everything, every subject out there. So I usually go there to learn something.
Well, I've had people ask me through the years, about my art, and they're like, well, where did you go to school for it? And I said, yes. And they're like, oh, really? Where? And I said, the University of YouTube.
Yes. Yep.
Because you can almost do brain surgery by watching YouTube, and they have everything.
So true. To answer your question, my studio is I live in San Jose. My studio is in downtown San Jose. So it's about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on traffic.
Well, that's not too bad. That's actually pretty good. So what kind of shows have you put your stuff in? And, kind of how do you normally go about doing that? What's your process?
So I've done shows probably years ago. I was doing shows where I was, they were usually, where it was a call for artists to submit, and I would do that. I've been in a few shows. I actually won an award in one of those shows, so that was really fun. But then I stopped doing them, and I was having a hard time getting into shows. And what I learned recently is I was listening to a podcast, Jen Tough, T-O, like the word, like you're tough on somebody, T-O-U-G-H, Jen Tough Art, it's called Tough on Art. And she has a gallery, and I learned so much from her podcasts. And one of the things I learned was if you're an abstract artist, it's very hard to get into shows, curated shows, because there are so many abstract artists submitting. And so your chances of getting in are pretty slim. And that totally made sense, because all of those shows I was submitting to, I was like, I don't get it. My art is getting good. And I looked at some of the stuff that was accepted, and I thought, I feel like my art is better than that. So I don't understand. And then once I listened to her podcast and started learning about what it takes to get into a gallery, and she talked about that, and I was like, that makes total sense. It's just oversaturated. And she talked about, if you're an abstract artist, it has to be extremely different than everybody else, to get in. So I haven't been doing a whole lot of shows. I do have gallery representation. I was with a gallery in Los Gatos, California, which is not far from San Jose, for several years. It was called JCO's, JCO apostrophe S. And they were absolutely fantastic. They were more like they were in a warehouse. So they're a warehouse gallery. And what I loved about them was they were so approachable. They were so casual and comfortable. They also helped homeowners. They would go to their home and help them place art in their home. So they had that as part of their gallery business. They used to have a really nice gallery on Main Street, the main downtown street, and the warehouse one did better, and that's why they ended up closing the storefront and just did the gallery. They sold so many pieces of my art over the years, and I was so sad that Julie, the owner, decided to retire. And so I don't have their representation anymore, although I do miss them a lot. I have two galleries that are representing me. One is in Santa Cruz, curated by the sea. That's been fantastic. And then also a newer one, which is where I'm having my show, COLIBRI Gallery in Morgan Hill. And I'm very excited to be working with both of them, and super excited about the solo show coming up.
Yes, that's so exciting, because I know that for solo shows, because I haven't really had one for me, like you make a big deal out of it. It's a big thing. You're kind of like the superstar for the night, or or for the day or whenever you have it. And that's when you're like, okay, everybody better be there or else.
Yes,
family, friends, whatever.
I need to work on my save the date. I've been calling people and texting people, and yes, I need to start posting about that. So I need to work on my marketing.
Yes. So, and I know I would love to attend one of your classes that you put on. Tell us about, where you have those and what are you teaching there and that kind of thing.
Sure. Yes. I started teaching years ago, and I started teaching because this one lady, Jeannie, who's a friend of mine now, an artist, lives a couple of hours north of me. And she emailed me and said, do you teach? I'd like to take a class with you. And I was like, immediately I wanted to write back and say, no, I don't. And then I thought, well, why not? I should do this. And so I wrote back and I said, sure, I teach. Let's do this. And so I was teaching out of my home, just my dining room table, 6 hours. You come in, and I also included lunch with that. I prepared a lunch for us, and we spent 6 hours together. And I walked them through the steps. We did some exercises together. And I did that for over a year. I would say like a year and a half of just having individuals or 2 people come to my home, and I would teach that way. And this really gave me the opportunity to really streamline and fully understand how I wanted to teach and what I wanted to teach and what order to teach it, what exercises to include. And it kind of grew over the years. And then I started teaching workshops, large workshops, where I had, 14 people in a workshop, and love doing that. So I'm doing a couple of workshops in person a year. This year, the 2 workshops are both going to be in May. One of them is going to be in Santa Fe at Santa Fe Artist Getaway. Bev Todd is the host there, and she is a fantastic human being, and her space is absolutely magical. And I am excited to be coming back to teach again this year.
That's wonderful. I know that you had, didn't you do one earlier this year, or was it late last year? You had, what'd you say, the workshop or whatever?
Now, I've got an online course that I launched early this year.
That might have been what I was seeing.
It might have been that, because I've been sharing that. So I've launched my first official full-blown online course, and that one is currently available. So message me if you're interested. I'm happy to send you the information. It's over 5.5 hours of content. I walk you through all of the steps. We do exercises together. I've got bonus material, which also includes an hour on just creating a black and white piece of art so that we can focus on the values. So there's a lot of stuff within that whole online course. And I've been getting, I have to tell you, every time I get a course review, it just blows me away how the feedback I'm getting, how happy people are with the course, the detail that I go through. And one thing that's a little bit different about this course, I would say, than definitely my YouTube videos and other even in person, although I'm trying to do this now in my in-person workshops, and that is thinking out loud and letting you hear my thought process as to why I put down a color where I do, or why I put down a mark where I do, and what my thought process is behind that, and how one color doesn't work with another, and what I do to fix it. And so I talk out loud through this whole process of mine. And the feedback that I've received is people just love hearing what I'm thinking and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yes, that makes sense, because it helps us when we're watching. So it's like, okay, she's all right with that, and so whenever you're working on your own art, you have Betty in your ear saying, da, 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 da. So, like, oh, yeah.
Okay, that color's not working, but that's okay. We'll let it dry. We're going to try another color over it.
You know what? It's just paint.
Exactly.
You just paint over it. And
exactly.
One of my studio mates, I share a studio with two other artists in the silos at Sawyer Yards. And I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a huge conglomerate of art galleries. And this is the larger one there. And I've been friends with these guys for a while. And we're all three different in our work. One is oil, and he does oil and, oh gosh, what is it? Metal. I can't even think what it is, but like, not structures, but what's it called? What is that word? I can't think of that. I'm always forgetting.
That's okay. Go to the next person and it'll come to you.
Yeah. Every Wednesday I forget one word. And then the other one, she does a lot of mixed media that, with the papers and different things, and creates designs, or scenes or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I do a lot of intuitive stuff. And, and that's one thing that, we're so different in that, and they look at me and they laugh because I'll have like a big white canvas on the wall and I'm, about to just smack some paint on there. And they're like, and they're very detailed and all this. And I'm like, just throw it on there. Yeah. And they laugh. I'm like, what's so funny? And they're like, you're nuts.
That's awesome.
And I said, that's just how it starts out. That's how you do it.
Exactly.
Just the different creative techniques.
Loose and creative and free and anything goes.
Yeah, it feels good. And I asked also, what inspires you to, now I know that I don't remember you ever mentioning, do you have any children?
I do. I have a daughter. She's 26.
Oh, but that's right. That's right. Okay. Yes, I remember that. Where does she live close to you, or does she live in Croatia or anything?
She actually lives with me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sweet. And you guys, do y'all argue at all?
Sometimes we do. We are still
listening. I just want her to hear this.
we're still mother-daughter, but we're also kind of like roommates. So it's kind of a balance in there of a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I lived with my mom one time. It was quite funny. You love them, but sometimes you need your space.
And I think she likes it when I go to Croatia, and she has a little bit of space. So yeah, I think it all works out.
Yeah. Well, but whenever you go to Croatia, doesn't your mom or your parents live by the bay or something? Or do you
they live on an island on the Adriatic.
Okay. So, and you go down to the ocean a lot, probably, or we have a view of the Adriatic Sea from the house. So we're on the island, and the island is right on the water. Wow, that's
meaning
awesome.
Meaning it's not a huge island. So when we go for walks on the other side of the island, there are no homes back there. All the homes are on one side.
Wow. So did you ever paint outside like that? Like by the water or anything?
No, sometimes there were times like back in 2018 when I was starting to learn this style of painting or realize what I was painting. I would paint outside on the deck with the view of the Adriatic Sea.
Okay. Actually, I think I remember seeing one of your videos that you did that or something about you being outside and painting. It always feels so, refreshing, and just when you're outside and getting to paint, especially by the water.
Yes.
It's very, very nice. Well, we're getting close to the end here. And so I guess if there's one thing or just something just amazing to tell the listeners, any kind of artist, whether they're a painter or, write a book, a poet, I don't know, someone in the circus, whoever wants to be creative, those creative people, what would you say to them to inspire them to keep going?
Yeah. What really worked for me is to really dive into your art practice. And, I don't want to say do it every day because that doesn't work for everybody and it doesn't work for me. I don't create every single day. So figure out what works for you, but find a way to really submerge yourself into it and spend that time exploring, experimenting, having fun, being loose, getting creative, trying new things, especially if you are trying to still figure out what is your art style, what is your voice. If you haven't really nailed that yet, or you're transitioning, then the more you practice, the more you create and have fun with that, you start learning what you like and what you don't like. And I always say it's so important knowing what you don't like as it is knowing what you do like, because then you can focus more attention on what you'd like to do. And then you can grow that skill more and more. I heard it said that when you are an artist and you are practicing your art, you need to put in 10,000 hours. Now, that's a huge number, right? That is a lot of work. And 10,000 hours, I did the math, 10,000 hours equates to working full-time, 40 hours a week for 5 years. So
right.
I know that seems like a big number, but I know you're not going to do 40 hours a week, but if you can, spend 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, just keep at it, keep plugging away, keep doing, keep experimenting, work on paper. I tell so many people, don't grab a nice expensive canvas because we tighten up and we're fearful that we're going to mess it up because we just spent this, huge amount of money on a canvas. Grab some paper. Paper is inexpensive. I love Bristol paper because it's nice and smooth and I can create and build up texture as I want. Work with paper so that you don't have that fear of this is so precious and I need to be so careful with it. And I think I learned that early on, like I talked about in my mixed media. It was all on paper. And so I didn't care if I messed it up. It was just a piece of paper. I set it aside. I tore it up. I used it for something else. So spend that time creating on a regular, consistent basis. I think that's so key.
That is amazing. Betty, it has been an honor and privilege for you to be on today. And thank you so very much.
Thank you, Amy.